Let me ask you something gently. When was the last time your body felt truly finished with danger? Not "I got through the day." Not "I survived it." I mean finished. The kind of finished where your shoulders drop without you telling them to, where your jaw unclenches on its own, where your breathing slows, not because you forced it, but because it finally could. If you can't remember, that's not a failure of memory. That's biology. Most people think stress is something that comes and goes. A bad week, a rough year, a difficult childhood, you're over now. But what if stress isn't something you're in? What if it's something your body never got out of? This video is not about anxiety disorders. It's not about personality flaws. And it's definitely not about what's wrong with you. This is about a set of biological stress responses most people are living inside of without knowing they ever entered them. Freeze, fawn, shut down, overfunctioning. These aren't diagnoses, they're survival strategies. And here's the strange part. Many of the people in these states don't look stressed at all. They're productive, responsible, helpful, calm under pressure. Doctors call them high functioning. Employers call them dependable. Families call them the strong one. But the body calls it something else. Unresolved threat. The human stress response was never designed to last forever. It was built for moments. A predator. A sudden loss of balance, a burst of danger, the body surges, the heart speeds up, muscles tighten, attention narrows, and then it's supposed to turn off. But modern stress doesn't end cleanly. There's no clear victory, no moment where the body gets the message, "You're safe now." Instead, the signal gets interrupted. Childhood stress that never resolved. Emotional danger with no escape, chronic pressure without recovery, and the nervous system does something brilliant. It adapts. I want to say this clearly because many people have never heard it this way. These responses are not dysfunctions. They are intelligent biological adjustments to environments that felt unsafe for too long. Freeze happens when fighting or fleeing didn't work. Fawn happens when connection was safer than resistance. Shutdown happens when energy conservation became survival. Overfunctioning happens when vigilance was rewarded. These are not character traits, they are states. But here's where things get complicated. When a state lasts long enough, the body starts to believe it's the baseline. This is where people say things like, "I've always been like this," or "That's just my personality," or "I don't feel stressed, I just feel tired." But biology remembers something the mind may not. There was a before, and there was a moment the body never fully came back from. In the next act, we're going to break these responses down one by one, not psychologically, biologically. We'll start with the one most people misunderstand the most, freeze. Because freeze doesn't look like fear, it looks like stillness. When people hear the word freeze, they imagine panic, wide eyes, inability to move, fear made visible. But biological freeze rarely looks like that. Freeze is quiet. Freeze is composed. Freeze is the moment the body decides movement is not safe. Freeze is not the absence of energy. It is energy held perfectly still. In the animal world, freeze is common. When escape fails, when fighting would worsen injury, the nervous system chooses immobility. Heart rate changes. Breathing becomes shallow. Pain perception alters. Consciousness narrows. The body does not shut down, it locks. Now, here's where humans misunderstand themselves. Because modern freeze doesn't look dramatic. It looks like zoning out, procrastination, brain fog, I just can't start, emotional numbness. People call it laziness. The nervous system calls it containment. Freeze often appears after long periods of being strong, after trying to think your way through danger, after learning that expression made things worse, after realizing that reacting didn't change the outcome. The body adapts by doing less, not because it wants to, but because it learned it had to. This is why people in freeze say things like, I know what I should do, I just can't. Or, I feel stuck, but nothing is technically wrong. Or, I'm calm, but I'm not okay. That calm is not peace, it's inhibition.
Okay, pause. Because this part messes with people. Are you saying someone can look calm, sound calm, even feel calm, and still be in a stress response?
Yes. And this is where many doctors miss it. Freeze lowers visible stress signals. Heart rate may normalize. Cortisol can drop. Emotions flatten. On paper, it looks like regulation. In reality, it's suppression.
So this is why people say, my tests are normal, but I feel wrong.
Exactly. Freeze doesn't scream, it whispers. Freeze is especially common in environments where emotional expression wasn't safe. Conflict had consequences. Unpredictability was constant. Or escape was impossible. The body learns stillness as protection.
That explains why people say, I shut down under pressure, but still show up every day.
Because freeze doesn't stop function. It stops felt experience. And over time, that disconnection becomes normal. This is why telling someone in freeze to relax doesn't work, or to just start small, or to get motivated. Motivation lives after safety. Freeze exists before it. And here's the part most people don't expect. Freeze often pairs with something else, a response that looks social, looks helpful, looks generous, but is just as protective.
You're talking about Fawn, aren't you?
Yes. And that's where things get even harder to recognize.
I need to slow this down because people hear fawn and think it means weakness, like being soft, like being naive, like not having boundaries. But the people I know who do this, they're sharp. They read rooms instantly. They anticipate needs before anyone asks. That doesn't feel weak.
It isn't. Fawn is one of the most cognitively complex stress responses the nervous system has. Fawn emerges when neither fight nor flight is safe, and freeze would increase risk. The body learns that connection reduces threat, so it studies people. It tracks tone, it predicts reactions, it adapts behavior in real time.
So this is the I'll become whatever keeps things smooth response.
Exactly. Fawn is not about pleasing. It's about stabilizing the environment. In Fawn, the nervous system assigns itself a job. If I can keep everyone okay, I'll be okay. This is common in homes where emotions were unpredictable. Anger had consequences. Approval equaled safety, or love was conditional. The body learns attunement is protection.
This explains why people say, I don't know what I want, but can tell you exactly what everyone else needs.
Because attention has been trained outward for survival. Over time, Fawn becomes invisible because it's rewarded. These are the people who are called reliable, easygoing, empathetic, team players. But the cost is rarely discussed.
Let me guess, exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix.
Yes, and resentment people feel guilty for. And burnout that doesn't make sense because nothing is wrong. Fawn keeps the nervous system activated. Constant monitoring, constant adjustment, constant suppression of self-directed impulses. It looks social, but it's stress.
This is where it gets strange, because these people end up in doctors' offices all the time. Gut issues, autoimmune flares, chronic pain, fatigue syndromes, and the labs keep coming back normal.
Because medicine is trained to look for disease, not adaptation. Fawn doesn't damage one organ. It taxes the entire system.
So people get told it's stress, but no one explains what kind.
Or how deeply biological it is. Over time, Fawn often pairs with another response, one that looks impressive, one society openly praises.
Overfunctioning.
Yes, overfunctioning is what happens when safety becomes tied to usefulness. The body stays alert by staying busy. Stillness feels dangerous. Rest feels irresponsible.
That explains why slowing down feels worse than being exhausted.
Because the nervous system associates motion with control. But here's what Fawn and overfunctioning have in common. Neither allow the body to complete the stress cycle, which means eventually the system runs out of options. And when that happens, the body doesn't speed up. It goes somewhere else entirely.
Shutdown.
Shutdown.
In medicine, shutdown is often described inaccurately. It is confused with depression. It is mislabeled as lack of motivation. It is frequently interpreted as non-compliance. These interpretations are incomplete. Shutdown is not surrender. It is not apathy. It is not a failure of will. Shutdown is a biological conservation strategy activated when the system determines that continued activation would cause damage. When fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and overfunctioning have all failed, the body chooses minimum output.
Shutdown is what happens when the nervous system says, if I keep going like this, something will break.
In shutdown, systems slow, motivation decreases, emotional range narrows, physical energy drops. This is not pathology. This is triage.
This is the part people are ashamed of. They say, I used to be so driven, or I don't recognize myself anymore.
Because shutdown often follows years of being functional at all costs.
Clinically, shutdown is difficult to detect. Standard tests often return within normal ranges. Imaging appears unremarkable. Blood work lacks explanation. From a systems perspective, nothing is wrong. From a biological perspective, the system is protecting itself from collapse.
So this is why people get told, you're fine, are feeling anything but.
Correct.
Shutdown isn't the problem. It's the evidence. Evidence that the stress cycle was never completed. Evidence that recovery was skipped. Evidence that survival was prioritized over restoration.
Modern medicine excels at identifying damage. It is less skilled at recognizing adaptive exhaustion. Stress responses that function too well are rarely questioned.
So when people say, "Why didn't anyone catch this earlier?" the answer is because they were still functioning.
Exactly. The system doesn't intervene when you're coping. It intervenes when you're broken.
Which is inefficient and preventable.
This is where people start asking, why wasn't this explained? Why didn't my doctor tell me this? Why does it feel like no one saw me?
Because the model isn't built for this. And that brings us to the question this entire video has been circling. Not what's wrong with my body, but why isn't the system trained to see this?
That question belongs to the next act.
At this point, many people feel a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because something finally makes sense, and anger because the question becomes unavoidable. If freeze, fawn, overfunctioning, and shutdown are biological stress responses, why aren't they being identified sooner? The answer isn't simple, but it is specific. Modern medicine is excellent at diagnosing damage, tumors, lesions, lab abnormalities, structural breakdowns. But stress responses don't announce themselves as damage. They announce themselves as function.
The medical model prioritizes deviation from norms. Stress adaptations often remain within statistical ranges. Therefore, they are classified as non-pathological. In simple terms, if you are still performing, the system assumes you are well.
So the better you adapt, the less visible your stress becomes. That's wild. You're basically saying the people most at risk are the ones who learned how to cope the best.
Yes, especially in cultures that reward productivity, emotional control, and self-sacrifice. Freeze looks like calm. Fawn looks like empathy. Overfunctioning looks like success. Shutdown looks like depression. None of these raise alarms early because none of them look like disease.
Medical education focuses on organ-specific pathology. The nervous system is often treated as secondary. Contextual stress is rarely integrated into diagnosis unless collapse occurs.
That explains why people get help after burnout, after breakdowns, after autoimmune flares, not before.
Exactly. The system intervenes at failure, not at overload. And here's the part I want to be very clear about. This isn't about blaming doctors. Most are working inside a model that was never designed to track nervous system adaptation. The problem is not ignorance, it's framing.
Stress responses are categorized as psychological, not biological. This separation limits early recognition. Biology, however, does not separate them.
So people get sent to therapy, told to relax, maybe given medication, without anyone explaining what state their body is actually in.
And without completing the stress cycle, awareness is not regulation. Insight is not completion. The body doesn't heal by understanding alone. This is why so many people say, I know why I'm like this, but nothing changes. Because explanation without biological intervention leaves the system exactly where it was. So the real question becomes, if medicine isn't trained to identify these stress states early, who is?
That question requires a different framework, one that includes nervous system states, recovery signals, and completion of stress responses.
Which means this conversation isn't finished.
No, this is where it actually begins.